Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, March 19th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 164 days, the game against Michigan in 255 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at GratefulGriddleOH.com. Today, as promised on yesterday's show, will be part 2 of the What We Learned after talking to Ryan Day following the Buckeyes' first practice of the spring. Practice number 2, that is coming up Wednesday. We will be back at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center with photos and videos, interviews, and much more. So make sure you're checking out our channel at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle, as well as BuckeyeHuddle.com. We had an enormous thread going all throughout the day and the night after practice number 1. I'm guessing we're going to have a bunch of new information for you during day number 2. So make sure you check that out all on the Huddle board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus at BuckeyeHuddle.com. All right. So let's hear from Ryan Day on some of the newest Buckeyes. Let's hear about some early impressions. It was only day 1, obviously extremely early, but some early impressions of that group of true freshmen.
Yeah. I'm impressed with the way these guys have worked. I'm impressed with the way they look. There's probably not a guy in that class where I'm like physically that, they can't have an impact as a freshman. Yeah, I've been impressed, and they're coming in with that mentality too. It'd be hard for me to just point one guy out, but yeah, at all positions.
One of the true freshmen who I think everyone is very excited about is true freshman cornerback Devin Sanchez. He was a 5-star prospect, really really talented player overall, and someone who might be able to contribute earlier than you might expect. So, all right, is Devin Sanchez someone who could crack the 2 deep at some point this year?
Yeah, if guys deserve to play, we're going to play them. And, you saw us even roll the offensive lineman at the end of the year because we felt like those guys deserved to play and they needed to play. It'll be the same thing there. And, if that means moving guys, around, we played with like 3 safeties last year. And then how do you see Lorenzo? Is he more of a safety? Is he more of a corner? So is that more of a 3-corner look? I think that's all great conversation that's going on right now in the defensive staff room. And then, it's just like on offense, if you have like 4 really good receivers, you might find yourself in, more wide receiver sets. We have more tight ends this year. So so those are all the conversations, things that need to be worked out. Not right now, but it's their job to do everything they possibly can to say, hey, I need to play. And I think we got some great candidates for that.
When you've been around the program for a while, you sort of figure out the cycles of things, and it sort of goes year over year. You're sort of like, oh yeah, this feeling again. Okay. And you kind of got that on Monday walking in, and there were a bunch of familiar faces who weren't there anymore. And obviously sort of a part of a college football program, but no more Jack Sawyer, no more JT Tuimoloau, no more Denzel Burke out there during Ohio State football practice. So, that's obviously just part of turning the page from last year to this year. And that process has already started for Ohio State. But for Ryan Day, was it a little weird to not see those guys out there?
Every year that happens, though. That you think about, and that's a great thing about being at Ohio State is, we get such great impact players, and once spring starts, you have to, all right, restart and look at it differently. But it started with mat drills. We've had 2 really good mat drills, and in those mat drills, we didn't have some of those same guys out there, but that's part of the process, and it's a great opportunity for guys to step up. And now we're on to the next year now, and doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but. It's a different group of guys, and all these guys are going to have to step up in a big way. So just getting started, but it is a transition for sure.
One of the big transitions this year is going to be at running back. No more TreVeyon Henderson, no more Quinshon Judkins. So while those guys are gone, the tandem approach that worked really well with them, is that going to be back this year?
Well, for James has obviously been here and he knows it. So he's going to have to step up. And it's not easy to figure out what running backs can do in the spring because we're not tackling them. But he knows what it looks like. He knows the offense. CJ has played more, but doesn't really know what we do here. And obviously, when you come to Ohio State, there's a transition. It was a transition for Quinshon. So I'm excited to see how that looks. He did a nice job in the first couple of weeks as he actually was a scout team back. He played Jeremiah Love and some of the guys we had, the guys at Texas, and did a good job with that. I thought he ran hard. But then it's going to be interesting to see these young guys, Bo Jackson, Isaiah, we'll have Turbo coming in, Sam, so we need these guys, like you said, to provide some depth and support there and step up. So to say that, it's solidified, we know what's going on in that room is not the case, but we do have some really good options there, and excited to see where these guys go. And sometimes when I think it's a great example of the offensive line, like you take Luke Montgomery, for example, like here's somebody that really didn't play the majority of the season. And when he finally had the opportunity, stepped up and everything changed in his world. I think it's the same thing for the running backs. Like James is a great example. James ran pretty hard in some of the games early on in the season, but when Quinshon and TreVeyon were in there and he wasn't getting, the carries, you kind of go about the business of, all right, this is my role, and you embrace the role. Now your role has changed. Now he's going to have to step up, and he seems to be having a great offseason.
In addition to the true freshmen, the Buckeyes brought in a lot of big additions to the transfer portal, none bigger, literally and figuratively probably, than Ethan Onyanwa, the left tackle, who they brought in from Rice, someone who was projected as one of the top offensive tackle prospects in the entire nation. So how big of an addition was he to this year's team? You can hear that answer, and then a quick follow-up from Dave Biddle of Bucknuts.
Well, when you lose two guys to the portal, two tackles, that certainly affected the room. So, I think it was important for both those guys to come in. We needed that for the depth of the room and just for the room in general. But, it's been exciting to see those guys work. I'm excited to see what it looks like with the pads on. Big E's already changed his body a little bit, so that's been good, and he's embraced the culture. Phillips the same way. He's an Ohio guy too, so he knows Ohio State well. And the guys seem to embrace them. It's important to have the right fit. I keep saying that over and over again, and I think that we did that again this year. With the guys that we brought in, they were the right fit culture-wise. They came in, understood that this is Ohio State, worked, earned the respect of the guys around them, and that was important with guys like Will and Quinshon last year. Caleb and Seth. Well, it's the same thing with these guys coming in, Max Clare and Ethan and Phillip and these guys. So important to make sure we continue to do that. When we add pieces in, they fit the culture. So I thought it was a really big get for us.
It's the first day of spring, but do you envision Ethan as a left tackle, and do you want to keep him at around, I think he's listed at 357 pounds. Do you like that? Or
no, we like it a little lighter than that. Okay. That's a little heavy. Yeah, we got to cut that down just a little bit. But the good thing is he can carry weight. And so now if we cut him down, we're just going to see more and more athleticism and bend. So that's good. He's going to start out at left, and then we'll go from there. But again, the more flexibility we can have with these guys, the better for the room. Because, you typically think, all right, we have five, who's the sixth? And then what does the sixth do? Well, he plays tackle or he plays center. Well, that really pigeonholes you, because now if you lose a guard, now you're going to, like, quote unquote, your seventh guy. But if you have swing guys, now you're playing your best seven or your best eight. You don't get yourself jammed up. So I think that's something that we have to do moving forward, is guys have to have almost a primary and a secondary position.
In addition to the new faces in terms of true freshmen and the new faces in terms of transfer players, there are also some new faces on the coaching staff. The only one on the defensive side of the ball is new defensive coordinator Matt Patricia, but he's in the middle of starting to install a new defense and sort of figure out how things work inside the Ohio State program. So is Ryan Day maybe more involved with the defense right now than he typically would be, with Matt Patricia still sort of getting acclimated? You'll hear the answer to that. And then a follow-up from Adam King of 10 TV.
No, it's everybody involved. It's just the whole defensive staff. It's myself, but Matt's, done a great job of building relationships early on here. He's excited to get going. It's just a start. We're just getting moving. But I think there's just a lot of things that, he's going to bring to that room. That's great. There's a lot of things that we've already done that's, going to stay in place. So it's good. Again, just getting started, like literally just taught a couple defenses today and get them lined up, get them moving around, and we'll keep moving from there and keep building on the packages.
When you have someone that's so, just football minded, do you like that, especially coming from the NFL background with him?
Yeah. You love being around smart guys. And he's smart. I mean, he's played a lot of football, or coached a lot of football, and then coached some really good players. So has a lot of credibility when he speaks. And I think it's great for him to just be around the culture, see how we do things. And he's jumped in with 2 feet and embraced it. Again, it's the same thing as when you bring in a transfer, when you bring in a coach, it's the same type of thing. Do you have the right fit? And I think it takes a certain guy to be able to walk into a room with, 4 other coaches like James and Larry and Tim and Matt, and be able to embrace what's already been here. We just won a national championship, but then also, look to enhance And so, we'll see. We're just getting started, but certainly so far it's been very positive.
Talked earlier about some of the guys who are gone, and those are impacts that are not just going to be felt on the field, but also in terms of leadership. So losing as many team leaders as they did after last season, does that change what the coaches have to do this spring? You're going to hear that answer, and then a follow-up from Jeremy Birmingham of the podcast.
Yeah, no, there's no question. Like you said, the number is certainly significant. And so, yeah, as coaches, we got to do our part and make sure that we're developing. And to me, it isn't like the older guys. To me, it's like the next level of guys that we've really got to bring along and explain to them what it means to, become really good football players, how to build trust in their teammates, how they're going to go about building discipline in their life, what it means in the run that we need to go on next year, and that first game, what that's going to look like, and all those types of things. So we got to be on our game as coaches. We got to develop at a high level, and that's the job of each individual coach. They got to make sure they're recruiting at a high level and bringing in the right guys. But ultimately, each coach is responsible for their room. I say that over and over again. Like, it's your job to develop, to make sure that your room is producing at a high level, showing great leadership, and you're recruiting the right guys. You have enough depth for late in the season. And so when each guy is doing their job, we talk about being 10 strong. We've done that for a long time. Then you got a chance to win them all.
Just a couple more questions. Do you feel different as a head coach right now? I mean, obviously coming off the national championship, you seem a little bit more relaxed. I'm
definitely more relaxed, Jeremy. I mean, to say I'm not is crazy. There's no question. Yeah, we're in a different place than we were a couple months ago. I mean, let's call it for what it is. But that doesn't change, like, the approach. And I think that's the thing. Like, some days you wake up. I said it was kind of like when I had the opportunity to become the head coach at Ohio State. You walk down the hall and you see Woody Hayes and Tressel and Urban and Cooper and Earl Bruce, and you pinch yourself. And a month later, you wake up and you're like, I'm the head coach at Ohio State. Like, man. It's the same thing with winning a national championship. Like, some days you wake up and you almost forgot you won it, because life just moves on. It just does. And it's on to the next challenge. It's on to the next group of guys. But winning just gives you an opportunity to continue to have an impact on young people's lives. And that's why you get into coaching, period. And if you're not, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And so that's it. And the staff, when I talk to guys and hire them and bring them in here, that should be the number one goal. Bring in young people, help them reach their dreams and goals in the game of football and in life. Winning just allows you to do that, because if you don't win them, they're going to find somebody else. That's just the truth. And I share that with the coaches all the time. But no, it's great to have a certain level of testimony and credibility to the work that we put in around here.
As the Buckeyes look for new leaders, is Sonny Styles, the linebacker, is he going to be one of those guys?
Yeah, I think he's finding his voice. I hear him speak up a lot. I think I've been impressed so far with his leadership, and I think when you speak with him, you'll feel the same way. Just a stud in all areas. Man's man, works at it, takes it very seriously, speaks up when appropriate. We'll ask a tough question when he needs to, and that starts with his family, with his dad, with his brother, with his mom. That's the way he was raised, and being a Buckeye means something. Obviously his lineage and his family, but also growing up in Pickerington, and then just being here with his brother now. So he is certainly one of the biggest leaders on the team.
Spring is a time when there's done a lot of evaluation done of the players on the team. Randy talked about the fact that it's really about growing the players during the spring, much more so than getting defenses and offenses and that kind of stuff, playbooks installed. You're going to do some of that, but really the main focus is on getting better. And when you're evaluating young guys who don't have as much experience, like, for example, like the quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, not a lot of on-field experience, how different is that versus last year when you had veterans like Devin Brown and Will Howard in that room?
Well, it's like we were just talking about. When you've done it before, you get the benefit of the doubt. When you don't, you don't. And it's the same way with being a quarterback. And Will got the benefit of the doubt because he had won a Big 12 championship. He had done it before. He had won big games at Kansas State. So we had tape of him doing it. We know that he had physically done it. So when there were some days you get off the fields, you still went back on that. When you're a young quarterback that hasn't done it, you got to prove yourself every day because you don't have a body of work to go back on. And that's just being a young quarterback until you kind of prove yourself and you make those, win those big games. That's kind of how it goes. That's life. And so we'll keep evaluating them much like that. But we've been in this situation before. We've had young quarterbacks. We brought them along, and A couple of those guys, once they got into year 3, they moved on to the NFL. We finally got them where we want them to go, but that's life too. So, we know we have a good supporting cast around those guys again. So that's important. The offensive line will be critical in how we run the football. But as you know, some of the weapons we have at the skill positions will allow us to just, again, make the routine plays routinely, take care of the football, and then make the plays when we need them to make the plays.
And finally, the spring is not only an important time for the development of this year's team, it's also an important time for recruiting for the future. So we saw a bunch of prospects in the Woody at practice on Monday. I'm guessing we're going to see more on Wednesday and then throughout the whole spring. So how important is it to bring guys on campus over the next few weeks? You'll hear that answer and then a follow-up from Andrew Gillis of Cleveland.com.
Oh, huge to see our guys work, to see the energy when you walk into the Woody. I think that's, you just feel it when you walk in. You feel greatness. You feel excellence. You walk into that indoor, you see the new banners up on the wall. Like it's all there. And so we take a lot of pride in developing the most elite players in the entire world. And then, the expectations of winning championships. And so it's great for recruits. It's one thing to put it on Instagram. It's one thing to follow our social media or talk to coaches. It's another thing to walk in the building and see it and be around great people and be around a culture of great players and great coaches. So I think that's obviously what separates us. And anytime you can physically walk in and see it, it makes a big difference. I think it's good for parents to see as well. I know as a dad, I want to take a look at the people and look them in the eye. There's a lot of great weight rooms, a lot of great facilities across the country, a lot of great stadiums. But to me, ultimately, it comes down to the people. And it's been like that a lot longer than I've been here.
See the kids here. What things can they ask you or ask position coaches to kind of let you know that they're on the right track? Like what clicks for you when you see a recruit, and what can they tell you?
Sometimes it takes care of itself. Like Ohio State's not for everybody, and some people it might be just too much. I don't know. The expectations are high here, man. And sometimes that takes care of itself, and that's okay. You have to want to be at Ohio State, whether you're from the state of Ohio or not. And, some people are just, they gravitate towards it. This is what they wanted. Jeremiah Smith, this is what he wanted. I could name a bunch of guys that are that way. Like they wanted to be around this, where every day when you walk on that field, it is a war. I mean, you have to compete every single day for your position, and you got to compete every single week to win every game. And so, that expectation is a big part of it. I think the second thing, though, is, people and families who want to be around this style of culture. When you walk in the building, it's a family atmosphere. A lot of people talk about family. That's another thing to actually live it and get around our players. And so what we try to do is open up our doors and please get around the locker room, get around our players, go have, go have lunch with our guys and be around our players, because to me, they're the ones who are, living it on a daily basis. Please get around our parents and let them tell the stories of how we've handled great situations, tough situations, how we've hung together, what their experience is like for their son. And to me, that's it. And people just gravitate towards that, and you can feel it, because in today's day and age, if you have to talk somebody into coming to your school and it doesn't go exactly perfect, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to walk out the door and enter the portal. So we all know that there's other things involved nowadays, but it hasn't changed in terms of relationships. And you want people to choose Ohio State for the right reasons, to be a Buckeye for the right reasons, so that when it maybe doesn't go exactly as it was the plan, or doesn't go exactly perfect, they're willing to stick it out and hang in there and work through difficult times.
Well, that'll do it for today's show, but we will be back at the Woody on Wednesday morning. Lots of coverage for you. Photos, videos, insight, analysis, what we saw, what we learned, interviews, much, much more. That's all coming up on Wednesday at BuckeyeHuddle.com and YouTube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. It's nice to have football back. It's only been a couple months, but it's good to have football back in everyone's lives. I've plenty to talk about. We hope to talk about it with you there at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.